What's going on? I feel like it's kind of been a while since we've checked in, like specifically about what camera I'm using to film nowadays, because I kind of quietly, without posting anything online or saying anything, just completely transitioned from using the FX30 as my main camera for filming football to using this, the Sony FX3. And you're probably wondering, Peter, why did you drop the FX30 so quickly? You literally just got it. And don't get me wrong, the FX30 is a super capable camera, but we got hooked up with these at work, and this is what we're using now to film all of our football games at the CFL. And I've really been enjoying it. It's been a really nice addition to my workflow. I still do carry the FX30 with me all the time, and there are actually some benefits to the FX30 that I don't get in the FX3 when it comes to specifically filming sports and action. But we're going to get into all of that. I kind of want to talk about this now because I'm going on a work trip. We're going to be filming a football game tomorrow night, and it's a great opportunity for me to put this thing into action, talk to you about everything I've been liking so much about it, and also talk about some of those drawbacks that I alluded to earlier. So I'm going to get packing. We're going to hit the road. Well, we're going to sleep and then hit the road tomorrow morning. And yeah, we'll check in back then.
When I was younger, you said I wanna be a good father. Hold up, wait a minute, who taught you? White friends saying they ain't seen black dads. Last week they seen flying saucers. I ain't really got too much to offer. My perspective, I'm selective with the method. I'm directed with the message. Most couldn't mess with, trying to break a record.
This broke. Not super happy about it. What can you do? We got before filming. So I'm on the road to Ottawa right now. We're gonna film a football game, well, obviously, and that's what we're gonna do to put the FX3 to the test. So it's Canada Day long weekend, and I know that the Ottawa Red Blacks, the football team out in Ottawa, gets a pretty good turnout. So I feel like this is gonna be a really good environment with lots of energy and a lot of fans where we can really like test this camera and see its limits, and I can really show you how I use it in all aspects on a game day. Just stopped off on the road to Ottawa to get a coffee because the drive from where I'm at is like somewhere between like 4 to 5.5 hours depending on traffic, and it's kind of a rainy day today. So I'm hoping the rain kind of like calms down and I don't need to get soaking wet outside tonight filming a game, but that's just how it goes with outdoor sports sometimes. And at the very least, then we'll get to test the weather durability, I guess, or like rain resistance of this camera, which is not something I'm like eager to test, but you know.
I'm finna hop in the whip, go on a trip, who on a roll, whole fam, ready to dip, ready to get.
After a few hours and another coffee, I finally arrived in Ottawa. I had a little bit of free time, so I took a quick walk to Parliament, then called an Uber to head over to the stadium. There we go. Okay.
Alright, cool. Hello.
So I just got to the stadium. I'm a couple hours early because I'm going to get a lot of establishing shots and just kind of like set the scene for the game, film the stadium empty, just in case we need that type of stuff in the future. But I want to talk about one of the biggest differences between the FX3 and the FX30, and obviously you probably know there's a lot of similarities, like the exact same body and the same ergonomic features, like the flip out screen and turning red when it records. But the FX3 obviously has a full frame sensor, which is really big when you're filming football at night. This game, for example, starts at 7 p.m. and the sun is going to set in the middle of that, and I'm just going to have to crank my ISO up to compensate because I won't have time to go and change lenses with all the action happening. So having the option to just crank my ISO on a full frame sensor that has a higher dual ISO and performs better at night is really nice. Not essential depending on the lenses you use, but nice. Obviously there's benefits to a crop sensor too, like further reach, and that can be really good depending on the lenses you're using, but for the setup I have today, the full frame sensor just makes more sense to me. Thank you. So real quick, just going over the gear I brought for today. You got the A7IV on, the DJI Ronin, just the original one. Got a video head, monopod to go with it right here. Got a monitor, a little multi-tool. This is the FX30, which I always keep on me because it's great. And then we got the FX3 with the Sony 100-400. And here we got the Tamron 2875. This has the Sony 20mm f1.8 on it. And then we got the XLR top handle that I'm going to use with the Rode NTG3. Now in warm-ups, if there are moments where I know I'm not going to be able to use audio, for example, if there's copyrighted music playing in the background in the stadium, then I'll usually shoot in S&Q mode because I'm not going to use the audio anyways, and that saves a lot of file space and still gives me really good quality stuff. A lot of the time, if I'm going to be exposing over the lower base ISO of ISO 800, like to use an ND filter to allow me to bring my ISO up to the second base ISO of 12,800 to give me a clean image. And then as the sun sets, this becomes redundant and I don't need the ND filter on it. I just take it off and put it in my pocket or put it back in my camera bag.
She wanna be where it's shining. Yeah, I said it's all in the timing. You know that she wanna be where it's shining. On the coast, need the sun cause she a rose. We go out and do the most. Yeah. Fresh off hiatus, we back. We going up to the max, yeah. Ain't no one holding us back. Too locked up, we been off balance. Things get rough up, we love a challenge. Press on us, I'm covered in diamonds. Ain't no scrubs, little baby, you styling, yeah. Too good, break it down like you should. Ain't no clue what we could.
So because the FX30 is a crop sensor camera and the FX3 is a full frame camera, I decided to use my Sony 100-400mm lens on the FX3 because I'm already getting good reach with that lens. And then I used the Tamron 28-75 f2.8 on the FX30. One, because the crop sensor helps me reach a little bit further and makes that lens more usable when I'm filming on a big field for football. And two, because an f2.8 lens all the way through performs really well in low light and lets me use the FX30 despite its worst low light capabilities even after the sun sets and get really good results. And then I had the FX3 totally rigged out. And then with my third camera, I had the A7IV with the 20mm on the Ronin S. And I used that pre-game for like the anthem and like some fan shots way up in like the top of the bleachers type of thing. I'll film in 4K 120 with either the FX3 or the FX30. One, depending on lighting, and usually with the FX3 this isn't a problem, but sometimes I find with the FX30 in certain parts of the stadium that aren't the most lit, I'm not able to quite expose 120 frames per second at night, but I'll shoot 120 FPS either for pregame or the anthem when a team's in the red zone or for a key part of the game. And otherwise, I'll film in 4K 60 to save card space, and because you just don't always need 120 frames per second, it's not really necessary. But I'll run all three of these cameras at the same time and just pick one up, put one down, go to a different place, and shoot all three of them. I'm currently dumping footage from all three of these different cameras from this game today. Each camera, I think the FX3 had like 90 files on it, the A7IV had 25, and the FX30 probably has like similar, like 25, 30-ish files overall, and I probably have like 150 gigs of footage, roughly, from the game today. So I guess to wrap this video up, the FX3 is a super versatile camera for sports and action photography. It has a full frame sensor, great low light performance. It's compact, you can run and gun it super easily, and it's adaptable to a bunch of different conditions. So I love using it. And at the same time, the FX30 is also a great run and gun sports and action photography camera. The FX3 is definitely better if you're filming in low light a lot and don't have control over your light, because you can just use the ISO to compensate whenever a shot's too dark, and it works. The thing can basically see in the night. And the FX30 specifically is great for football because that crop sensor lets you use lenses that aren't quite as telephoto, and as a result usually pay less, save a bit of money, and also have a lighter setup that you can run around with more easily, but still get all the reach you need to film across a big field. For example, I usually use a 70-200 if I'm looking to actually film gaming. I couldn't run the FX30 as my main camera, but I have to use a 100-400 most of the time if I want to use the FX3 and get similar results. So that's really where the FX30 shines. Either way, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these cameras. I love having them both in my kit. I'm absolutely spoiled, but if you just have one of them, or even if you just have this A7 IV, because I used this for a whole year and it was great, it's absolutely no problem. You can still get some really great shots. Now, if you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. I post videography and video editing tips and tutorial videos, and sometimes in the field stuff like this, similar to this one, on a regular basis, and I would love to have you around for that. If you have any questions about anything I showed you today or anything we talked about, please drop it in the comment section. And yeah, that's going to be all for today. So until next time, peace.